I see it.
We're on. So hello everybody. Welcome to the Fork in the Road podcast. I'm so delighted today to welcome Anna Fruehling, who's a Primal health coach, a certified health coach, and licensed to do the full sugar assessment that Bitten Johnson developed. She has herself a number of autoimmune disorders which she manages with diet and lifestyle, and is 31 years, folks, in recovery from addiction. She helps other people overcome food addiction through abstinence and lifestyle. And let me say that Anna's one of the most what's the word that I'd use? It's sort of energetic. It's like you've got this sort of energy, that's positive energy that comes off you. The first meeting we had for Bitten's training, I kind of felt that coming through the ether. So it's always a delight to talk and hear your thinking, and also how you explain things to people, I think is really nice. So it'll be great to get some of that today. But perhaps a good place to start, it's always a good place to start, isn't it? It's kind of the beginning, really, and a bit about your own story, Anna, and how it all began and how you got to be doing what you're doing today.
Well, what I do today is so much fun. It's truly a blessing and a privilege to be able to help people overcome, addiction, because we think there's something wrong with us and we don't know what it is and we can't pinpoint it. And watching people get free from the disease of addiction in all of its manifestations, because, as you know, we all believe in addiction interactive disorder. And you don't really want to switch seats on the Titanic, but that's what happens. And so, I started off very young with autoimmunity. I had psoriasis of the nails, and they were incredibly thick and flaky. And I always thought my first drug of choice, being a recovering addict, was books, because I would read books and I would become the hero in the book or whatever. Anyway, I ended up, the first time I used actual drugs, it was like, it was just this, my brain exploded and I felt like I belonged with the people I was with and all that kind of stuff. And forever, I just chased that. And I ended up getting clean at about 17 years old. And then I relapsed and I got clean finally again at 23. And I always thought, I'm an addict. And I knew about addiction interactive disorder, but I really didn't know. And I called myself a food junkie, chef extraordinaire, a foodie, And I mean, I had a cookbook collection that, probably rivaled anyone's cookbook collection. I have autographed cookbooks from Jacques Pepin and what's her name? Why can't I think of her name right now?
Probably good that you've forgotten it now.
Right. Well, no, she's incredibly famous, and I kept the cookbooks, I kept those cookbooks, Julia Childs, and I have an autograph from other people too. That's how much I was involved with food, and my whole life and thinking was centered in food. What am I going to eat next? What am I going to prepare for my family? There was a lot of ego involved with my preparing of food. Everybody called me for, Anna, you know how to make anything. Like, I'm a kitchen magician. I had the nickname that I'm a Ginsu chef. I could chop up anything. My dad was full-blooded Italian, and every barbershop that he had food growing in it. Some people paid him in food, like steaks or whatever.
Wow.
When my husband first flew out to San Francisco and met my father before he passed away, in his barbershop in the Italian neighborhood, he had a big clawfoot bathtub full of basil, and he was sitting there blow drying the basil while the Italian guy was sniffing it up in his chair into his nose, and they were speaking Italian. And my husband was like, all right, babe, you are Italian. Like, he didn't really believe, because I live in the middle of Nebraska.
And did you never think of being a chef? Was that never on the...
Oh, I was a chef.
Oh.
As far as I'm concerned, I was a chef. I could bang out without dropping a beat, however many course meal, without looking at a recipe, without sweating. My husband has said, and we've been married for 30 years, that he would rather eat at home than go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, I can cook better and serve the meat exactly right. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than going and ordering a piece of salmon that's like as dry as shoe leather. And you know what? I love that I'm a good cook and
Yeah.
that I understand flavor profiles and all of that, because I think recovery, we have to enjoy, and
Cooking.
it's okay to enjoy
I,
our food. In fact, I make it
I
a
think that's
point.
true. I think it's actually easier for people to transition to a sort of abstinent lifestyle if they can cook and they appreciate how to put together a meal and so on. So I think it is a strength when it comes to it's a weakness and a strength, let's say.
Well, so anyway, so my journey, part of my journey was several years ago. I saw Bitten on one of the quit sugar summits, and I was blown away. She's very energetic, like I am. She says I'm an acetylcholine brain, and I'm acetylcholine driven, like she is, and that's a
Yeah.
pretty high energy person. And I think this is my natural self. Like I had a lot of energy before I got really sick and before I got into the drugs and before the food became more of a problem. And now that I'm in recovery, I have a lot of energy again. And I have a sponsor that says, don't dim your light for anyone. And that's a really positive message for me, because being a drug addict and having been ostracized as a kid for my nails and all of that kind of stuff, I'm not giving up my seat in this world for anyone. And I'm not apologizing for who I am. And to me, that's a huge part of recovery, is self-acceptance
Yeah.
and self-love, and understanding that I was made on purpose for a purpose. And I don't have to be everybody's cup of tea. Even going out there, it's taking a risk to have your podcast, right? I mean,
Yeah.
some people are going to be like, oh, who does Jen think she is? She's not saying anything new, or she's not, what does she think she's doing? Well, you know what? I'm with Bitten on the whole starfish thrower thing. If it helps just one person, let's do it. Let's
Yeah.
do what we can. And to me, like different starfish throwers. And so I'm going to throw some starfish and you're going to throw other starfish. And that's why we need a lot of us. So I'm not very competitive either at all. In fact, I want to be, my goal is to train as many people to train more people, to help more people. And so, I mean, that's my ultimate goal. But so I watched Bitten and I was like, I have to contact this woman. My mind was blown. I was like, I get it now. I know what's wrong. And I had been paleo, AIP, autoimmune paleo, primal, keto for a long time, for years at this point, like at least 6 years. But
Yeah.
every once in a while I would like, oh, it's Christmas time. And my brother-in-law would send me a box of my favorite C's candy from San Francisco. And I mean, it's butter, chocolate, perfectly toasted nuts, ooey gooey caramel, salt, just the exact, they've been making that candy for over 100 years, and they only use real ingredients. And food snob is another label I used for myself.
Yeah.
And to this day, I won't eat it if it doesn't taste good. That's like one of my things I won't do. But that wasn't true when it came to sugar.
Mm-hmm.
I would eat it no matter what, So when I was watching Bitten, I was remembering being pregnant at 18 years old, and I didn't want to use drugs while I was pregnant. And I had a bag of powdered sugar and I mixed it with water and I ate it right out of the bag. And it
Yeah.
was disgusting.
Yeah.
But boom, 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 boom,
That's right.
my brain was lighting off and I was getting relief from thinking about that my ex was out shooting up dope or this or that, or that I didn't have a bed to sleep on, because my circumstances were awful,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't have, the support and all of that kind of thing. And addiction is such a maligned disease.
Yeah.
And I love what Bitten always teaches us, right? That if you have a disease, a chronic illness, and you have symptoms returning, whether that's a full relapse or whatever, you've got to keep on top of it. And you're not ashamed to go get help because you have a chronic problem. Maybe you were born with a heart disorder or something.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go get your heart checked out on a regular basis and make sure you're not, having blood clots or this or that. Or maybe you have an autoimmune disease, or maybe you had cancer. You're going to go and get the treatment, and there's no shame. But when you have a disease that affects your central nervous system and your brain and all of those things and rewires your brain, no, you're supposed to be ashamed. You're supposed to be able to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and do
Do it
something
yourself.
about it.
Yeah. Just have some control. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
No,
What's the matter with you? Can't you blah, 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 na, na, na. And you just, posted that article from the New York Times about, are the foods we're eating addictive? Are they making us eat more? And the answer to that question is yes. Bet you can't eat just one
yeah,
is a Lay's commercial. So I got a hold of Bitten and she said, let me do a sugar on you. We've got to do a sugar. So we scheduled it. She did the sugar on me and I was just blown away. And my earliest memory of knowing that I had to have something and knowing it was like it wasn't okay what I was doing. I was 3 years old and I climbed up on the cabinet to get Johnson's baby aspirin that are little orange, kind of tangy,
sugar.
almost like a sweet tart. And I knew, even at 3, I knew this was medicine. And
Mm,
I knew I shouldn't eat too much, so I didn't. But I remember like the light in the air, the little particles in the air. And I remember looking over my shoulder as I opened that cabinet
yeah,
and pulled off that, back then, no child safety caps, and I
yes,
remember eating like 3 or 4 of those and just like,
yeah,
like Calgon, take me away kind of experience,
yeah,
and and so then, after doing the sugar, a lot of other things occurred to me because now I made a commitment that I was going to stop altogether. And it took me a little while, but just for today, I'm stopped now.
yeah,
And that's how I have to look at it. Every day is I expect the unexpected, and that's what I teach my clients to do. Expect the unexpected, or you're kidding yourself. There's going to be a commercial. Someone's going to bring food into your home. At Christmas time, I had neighbors bringing me cookies, candies, cakes, whatever.
Christmas,
I just sat them in the laundry room.
Valentine's.
What?
We've just had Valentine's, haven't we? And there's all this expectation of special meals, and yeah, yeah, it's really
Right, and we've made food the central part of our entertainment. Food
everything.
is entertainment, and really that started off naturally because we would in the fall have big celebrations and that kind of thing back before refrigeration and this and that. Like, it was very necessary for us to gain fat, and that's a very good biochemical response for a human being to have, and it's why we're here. So Bitten explains the brain as a very special, the brain of an addict is a very special hypersensitive brain, and I really believe that's why the human race has existed, because we would have been the ones wanting to have sex, wanting to go hunt, wanting to go fish, wanting to, build better shelter, whatever, because we were going to survive, and that dopamine reward system is all about survival.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with it.
yeah, yeah. My mum, who looking back, she's not with us now, but she was definitely a food addict as well. Looking back, and she used to say, we would have been the survivors because we were so focused on, she said, well, I'm so focused on food and I just eat a tiny bit and I put on loads of weight, I would have survived the winter. She used to literally say that. So I completely agree. We're at sort of that end of the spectrum, if you like everything is variable, isn't it, in humans? Eye color, hair,
Yes.
height, yeah, intelligence, all kinds of different things, sociability, and we've just, I agree, it's a
Well,
kind
and all of that's
of,
been hijacked. It's not just sugar. For instance, like, how far does the average person live from any immediate family now?
mhm,
And how much do we rely on one another as a community
yeah,
to survive? We could not see another person as long as we live and have our groceries delivered, work from home, and be completely isolated today. And back in the day, if you behaved out of line with your tribe, man, that was a really horrible thing. And you would be ostracized and punished because of that,
yeah,
because the whole group depended on each other for survival. And that connection is part of what's missing with addiction as well.
yeah,
We begin to isolate, and we begin to, because we know we're doing something we shouldn't be doing. Like when I knew I was sneaking those aspirin, and then the whole thing about getting your insulin roller coaster going up and down and getting hangry and having those low blood sugars, or I'm hypoglycemic, I have to snack. no, you're insulinemic. You have too much insulin and it's driving down that sugar because it's seeing that as an emergency, because that's part of our brain's homeostasis. And that just means our survival mechanism. And so you said something interesting to me, and that is your mom considered that she ate very little, but her metabolism was broken. So at that point, it doesn't matter how much you eat. It matters that you can't get your insulin low enough to stop storing fat. And so, and if you can't stop storing fat, you can't access fat for fuel. And that's what that stored fat is. It's fuel. In fact, we only have 2,000 calories worth of glucose stored. And that's really supposed to be, I call it the break glass in case of emergency type of fuel. We're supposed to just be able to run out in the street and grab a kid, or back in the day, prehistorically, we would have to chase food or run from something that was chasing us. And so, you know, a carb molecule has like, it can hold 3 grams of fluid. And so can you imagine if we relied on sugar for fuel, really, if our bodies were meant to do that, we would be like puffy blowfish. We would be huge and so squishy and full of water. And you see people, you see this happening if people have pitting edema or weeping edema or something like that. That's because they have all of this fluid stored so much so that it goes interstitially. I won't even get into that, but we're supposed to be designed to look like, let me show you. This is a Mark Sisson book. And of course, he's who I'm. And so these 3 guys, the guy in the middle has like an 8-pack, and he's the oldest one.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't have furniture. They had a community that they relied on for survival. So they relied on each other for survival. Yeah. And they didn't stress over like the low level stress that we have today that also impacts insulin. But when I did my quiz with Bitten afterwards, and after I realized started taking her class and realized the link between mood and depression and all of these other things and sugar addiction, like I said, I didn't eat much sugar or anything all these years, but there was one year I went back to my mom's, and my mom and I had a, kind of a troubling relationship. My mom I think she's a sugar addict, and part of it was her volatile blood sugars and her kind of depression and things from that. And I remember my mom would always she buys treats when people are coming. It's her excuse to have it around. Well, so things full of licorice whips and, cinnamon bears and this and that. And I mean, I remember that day I was eating a bunch of candy and it came on the news that Robin Williams had committed suicide. And then my mom said and did some things, and it really affected me. In the middle of the night, I woke up just sobbing. I had been clean for years. This was about 7 years ago. Yeah. I had been clean for years, and I woke up in the middle of the night feeling like life wasn't worth living, and not like I wanted to commit suicide, but having the ideology. And I remember I called my sponsor the next day, and one thing was I made more clear boundaries with my mother, which helped. But the biggest thing that helped was for me to link together that I had been binging on sugar all day.
Yes.
And my mood and my ability to handle life on life's terms was severely affected by that sugar. And I think that was amazing for me.
Don't you? When you've had some abstinence, and then we did this once as well in the early days when we were low carb and blah, blah, blah. But we went out for a special meal. I think it was Valentine's, actually, funny enough. We went to this amazing restaurant with a Michelin star, and we went, oh, hang it, we'll have the dessert. And we had the dessert. And next day, the both of us were miserable, bloaty, hungry. And I think you really notice that when you've had a period of abstinence. It helps you to see that that's what it is. It's not that life is miserable and, it gives you that clarity really of what the issue is, and that determination to kind of get back on, really, that is the effect of it. So I was going to ask you, so obviously that was a kind of talk about this kind of fork in the road moment, and that was when you saw Bitten on this conference, and you were like, oh my god, that's me. Yeah. What advice do you looking back now would you give to someone who's sort of at that point of only realizing, oh gosh, all these years, that has been the underlying issue, I can't moderate this stuff. And I think it's so common that people try keto, they try Atkins, they try low carb. They feel really well when they're on it. And like you say, sometimes when people are fasting, they feel amazing, but they just can't keep it up. What advice do you give to someone at that point in their journey?
My advice is stop eating the things that harm you and don't worry about the exact right ratio of this. Don't worry about your weight. Don't worry about all of this stuff because miraculous things are going to happen in your body when you, what I call, unplug from the drug.
Yeah.
And to me, that does include I call them Franken oils. A lot of people call them industrial seed oils because they are pressed with industrial equipment. They were meant for machinery. And when we got light bulbs, they had to do something with that. And that's when Crisco came out.
Yeah.
And the advertising was, this is clean and it's not going to smell nasty like bacon grease. Well, you know what? Bacon grease smells wonderful. Sure,
Yeah.
you can always tell if someone's cooking, but historically and culturally, people always saved rendered fat for use as a
Yeah.
cooking source.
Yeah.
And you can look back and you can see that we've gotten progressively sick as we've switched over to these industrial seed oils. And they're bleached, sanitized, and deodorized. So you can't really tell. They're already unstable. They have a double bond that's shaky like this. So if you're feeling anxious, I wonder if it's because all of your cells are shaking around like this.
Yeah.
It has a 2-year half-life, meaning the last time you ate it, 2 years from now, you still have half of that in your body. And so it takes a long time to get that out of your body, but it's amazing. It's an amazing gift to yourself. But my point is some patience is required. And
Yes.
then you take out the sugar and all of its, something like 200 names, I think Lustig says, and they're making new sugars and new names all the time. The most recent one I heard about was the one in Israel it's actual sugar, but it's like 2 or 3 times sweeter. And so you can eat less for less calories,
Uh,
but it's going to be sweeter. Well, there's a huge problem with that because the taste at the tip of your tongue is where it starts. And we know that we get desensitized and the reward system gets desensitized. So our dopamine is downregulated to protect us
mhm.
because you die if you had too much dopamine all the time,
Yeah.
and this is the same thing insulin does, right? So insulin becomes a bully to clear the sugar out of your blood. So by the time you have a chronic high elevated blood sugar, a lot of damage has been done.
Done. Yeah.
And so, so all of these things change as you take these foods out of your diet. So you get rid of these oils and use animal fats primarily, and secondarily use fruit oils like avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, or even just regular olive oil for mayonnaise or whatever. I make bacon grease mayonnaise myself.
Yeah. We always save the fat of everything that we cook if we haven't eaten it all. Yeah. I think I absolutely agree. Do you agree with me that sometimes what scuppers people in the beginning is that they've still got this sort of diet mentality, or they're so scared of putting on weight that they don't want to have the amount of fat and protein that they need to sort of for their bodies to kind of relax about it? Or would you
Yes.
see that as well? Yeah.
I 100% agree. I actually think, also grains, you've got to get rid of grains. Grains are so psychoactive on so many levels, including opioids. And at first, go ahead and keep dairy in and have as much high fat dairy as you need. And then you can decide later if you want to remove that because you're already removing a lot of things. And I believe there's a grieving process that goes along with it, as well as learning how to communicate with other people. And I think communication is huge.
Hmm.
And one thing I would say, like, my family is completely supportive of me and has been from the beginning because one of my last diagnoses was celiac. And that's where this really all started with me changing my way of eating. And nobody really wants you to eat in a way that's going to harm yourself. So if you have a medical consequence as a result of what you've put in your mouth, that's a really good place to begin speaking with your loved ones and just say, hey, honey, the doctor says, that I have PCOS and that if I want to have kids, that, I'm going to have to change what I'm eating. And I know that PCOS is called type 3 diabetes. So I'm eliminating all sugars from my diet because I want to be healthier. And I can't eat just a little bit. You know, I can't. You've seen me eat it. You know, I don't have an off button. So I'm just going to try my best today just to not eat anything with sugar in it. And that's a better way than going at someone, I'm changing the way I live. Now everybody else has to rearrange their lifestyle for me,
Yeah.
and really, I mean, what you want to do is you want to enlist people's help
Yeah.
and ask for their help. Could you please support me?
Yeah.
I'd so appreciate it. And, you've been so great to me in so many ways. And this is a big ask, that kind of thing. So I think
Nice
teaching
way
people
to
how to kind of communicate in a way that says, I love you and I want to be around for you. And I want to be able to do this, for
be,
my health.
yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. I think it's really important who what the attitude is of the people you live with, and if they're willing to go along for the ride, which fortunately eventually I was lucky enough that was the case, even with the grown-up kids. I think that makes such a massive difference. The people that I see struggle are the people who have families and partners um, who are, consciously or not, slightly undermining of their efforts, or don't understand that, as you say, that this is a kind of, it is a matter of life and death at the end of the day. So
Yes. And I think too that, the grieving process is real. You may have grown up eating certain foods on certain days and have certain traditions and
yeah.
people's expectations, but mom, you always made
Oh,
this or that.
my
Just the
kids,
other day,
my,
I ran across a whole bunch of my grandmother's recipes in her own hand. She'd be 105 now. And I called my cousin and said, would you like these recipes? I don't need them.
yeah,
You know, I
yeah,
don't need them. And I'm going to go through my other recipes and I might just take some pictures and put them on a file, just like
yeah,
as a preservation, but I don't need them. And I've learned that I can I can make the memories. Like I don't have to have pesto with spaghetti. I can make homemade pesto and I can put it on top of a piece of fish.
yeah, yeah,
Or I can make my clam sauce that I used to make for linguine and I can put it on top of, you know, whether it's, uh, you know, green beans or something like that I've roasted in the oven and wilted. And it's actually a really great replacement for pasta.
yeah.
And I have some clients whose children now prefer that to pasta, which is amazing because kids are getting really sick.
Completely agree with that. Yeah, yeah. We have to just adapt. I agree with that. Adapting. You still use your cooking skills. Yeah. I was laughing when you were saying about the kids, because my kids still remember the days when I used to make all the baking and everything, and they sometimes go through a little kind of, oh, remember that, apple crumble. Yeah, I can still remember that apple crumble. And yeah, totally. Yeah, and we need to. Yeah, we need to educate the whole families and bring everyone along. So um, for people that don't know, we've started a group on a Wednesday night at 6 o'clock UK time in Clubhouse, and we had a really great discussion last night with people, and people wanted to talk about food a lot, didn't they? And
Yes.
um, we're foodies, aren't we, at the end of the day? But we're thinking of having next week the topic, it's not all about the food. So
And I think it's really only about 10% about the food. And when I talk about the miracle of your body, is that it's designed for that health in those pictures that I showed you of those Aborigines in the 1930s.
mhm,
We are supposed to be muscular, straight up and down people that are flexible, mobile, strong, have straight teeth, are able to quickly adjust to situations because our vision is good and our where we are in relation to space. We understand all these things and we have good intuition because we don't have all these shiny, pretty things and all these distractions. And that's something, like the stress piece for women especially is huge. the chronic low level stress. I call it like that rabbit on Alice in Wonderland. I'm late for a very important date. And really half of the things, probably I'm going to say 99% of the things that we assign that level of importance to are not important at all.
Mm-hmm.
They're not that important to get stressed out over. And I think that that's like, and of course the grieving process. And I just think that we can become such better whole and rounded people by pointing our feet in the direction they should go, which is away from food as the central topic of life and towards our relationships and towards our interests and towards stress reduction and towards a joy for living, and generating that joy. Even in the midst of circumstances like we have right now with COVID, generating that joy and grabbing it wherever you can get it and spreading it wherever you can spread it. And that becomes so much more appetizing. I'm going to use the word that's what we're really hungry for.
Yes.
Is those connections. And that's the serotonin part that isn't selfish, that doesn't hide and sneak and lie about food, that doesn't that doesn't isolate and alienate to get mine. Like the dopamine part is very like, I've got to have this. And it really is a survival mechanism. Yeah. The shame and the guilt is nothing. Don't even be ashamed or guilty just because people have invented ways of hijacking that system, and just because ever since the first fermented, piece of fruit that man walked upon, we've had addiction. It's as old of a disease as mankind, because we want to feel good. We want to feel
the apple.
Yes, exactly. And so it's I think the guilt and shame is the number one thing I would say. It's not your fault. It's never been your fault, and it's not your fault if you can't just stop and stay stopped right away. Don't worry about it, because almost no one can. Almost no one can make that decision and then do it.
A great piece of advice for people at the beginning of the journey, isn't it? Don't expect once you just make, oh yeah, that's what it is. It's sugar, right? I'm going to give up sugar. Don't expect that it's a straight road.
It never will be. And I also think, one thing Bitten shares, she's been doing this for so many years, and she went on a crazy binge when she became perimenopausal.
Yeah.
And she talks about like she was in chocolate up to her eyeballs.
Yeah.
And see, it's a very powerful drive for us. And knowing everything she knows, she still had a relapse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what if you have a relapse, or if you have a hiccup or a bump in the fork in the road, then just get up, go, I'm okay, I'm good. And then just point your feet in the direction they should go. And don't attach guilt and shame, and start thinking about what would you say to someone else? How would you speak to someone else?
Yeah. What would you do next time if that scenario may be something that will come up again? Who knows? Like birthdays, Christmas, they come around every year. So how are you gonna deal with it?
Right. And you know what? Duh. We always think, duh, I could have had a V8 or whatever. But the truth is, it's a great learning experience when we fall. Even communicating wrongly, if we learn from it, then it's a great learning experience.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite sayings, and I probably won't get this right, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but becoming a noticer, like, of your life rather than a critic of your life is a huge thing, where you just notice.
That's lovely.
Like be in awareness rather than putting yourself as that critic, because I call them automatic negative thoughts. And I always tell my clients, you've got to kill ants. And that's, Bitten talks about that being your your red dog. But the red dog can whisper sweet nothings, like an abusive lover trying to get you back,
Yeah, yeah.
because that dopamine area, that survival area of our brain now has been hardwired for this preference. And of course we wanted to eat these sweets, right? Because like a bear or whales that go to Hawaii, that are in Hawaii right now and having babies, they don't even eat one bite of food, and they nurse, and they use all that stored body fat. And we were supposed to be able to use stored body fat in times of lean. Problem is there's no times of lean now, but our body doesn't know that. See, this is why I maintain it cannot be our fault.
Yeah.
There are videos you can pull up on YouTube that show a baby at 1 year for their birthday getting a scoop of hard ice cream that is ice cold. And she takes that first bite, and you see the 4th of July just blow up in the back of her head. And you
If you
see
Google
she digs
baby's
her,
first ice cream, you see it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
she digs her fingers into that
Grabs.
ice cream cone, and that cone, that ice cream is cold, but she's shoving it in her face. And
Yeah,
if you came across honey or berries or whatever back in the day, you would have eaten as many as you could before the animals came and took all of that.
yeah,
You didn't have any way to preserve anything. And so you would have gorged yourself. So I think that also binging is natural to human beings. And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
and you can deal with all of those things much later. Just get off of the drug food. And if you have been eating, and only you know this, if you have been eating super high carbohydrate, I mean, we have things called ices or Slurpees here, and some of the large ones have like 145 grams of sugar in them, of sugar. And people will drink like 1 or 2 of these a day, or they get the 64 ounces of pop. Listen, if that speaks to you, get rid of the liquid sugar. Just get rid of all liquid sugar for the first week.
yeah,
And then maybe make a real food breakfast and ditch the cereal. You could do it meal by meal, but you don't have to hurt yourself to do this. And I think you're going to be more compliant if you allow yourself to not be perfect in the beginning, and allow yourself to say, I'm going on this journey, and this is what I want to progress towards, and this is my plan to do it. And then that way you allow, because when your insulin all of a sudden drops like that, you're going to feel like shit.
you feel bad. Yeah, that's how I did it, and I felt bad for a couple of weeks. Yeah,
And it's not necessary, and I don't even think it's very prudent.
yeah,
I don't think that it's that it's necessarily a smart idea, because it's very hard when your body feels like crap to stick to your plan. But if you say to yourself, just for today, I'm not going to drink any sugary drinks, and you exit off on your calendar,
yeah.
ooh,
Get a,
I'm three
get a bit of
days in, I don't want to blow it now, and
get a
then
bit of
you
dopamine for that. Get a bit of dopamine for ticking it off. Yeah,
yes, I think, even planning for a reward, like at the end of these 5 days, then,
I get my
then
nails
I'm
done.
gonna,
Yeah,
whatever, I'm gonna buy that, that purse that I wanted. I don't care what you have to do. And I also think asking someone to partner up with you, like if you know another chronic diet, or somebody who's always asking remember 3 years ago when you lost 30 pounds? I know you gained it weight, but what diet was that? Maybe you talk to that person, and you say, hey, you want to buddy up, and let's just get rid of some of the stuff that's causing the problem in the first place once and for all.
yeah,
You know, you want to try to quit drinking pop with me,
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. It's so much better if you're doing it with somebody else. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I think you're just going to have to tell us about SugarX Global now, because this is a great project. There's some amazing people working on it, and I think it's going to be just so helpful. It's much needed. So tell us a little bit about it, and where it's up to, and how people can find out more.
Well, anyone can get on our waiting list at sugarxglobal.com. And right now it really is a waiting list, but you can also reach out to us if you want more information. If you're not sure, whether you have addiction or not, that's a good place to start, because if you don't want to treat cancer if you don't know you have cancer, there's no reason to do that. And, there's a huge difference between harmful use and addiction. And a harmful user can do a lot of different things, but they don't have to like have ongoing treatment for chronic illness because they don't have a chronic illness. So you can reach out to us through that site as well. And what we are really working on right now is we're coming up with a 5-day free challenge to help people quit sugar, and it's going to have 5 components. And the first one is going to be explaining how foods are addictive and why they're addictive, and also explaining there's no guilt and shame over it and that kind of thing. And that's going to be a Facebook group. And we are also developing and have been working on it for some time, a 9-week course that is very intensive. And it's basically, meeting with one of us for the first 3 weeks, 3 times a week, plus having video resources and kind of an evergreen type of program. So we understand that people's brains are very foggy and they might forget what we said. So we're going to put little short lessons that you can refer to that are yours for the rest of your life. So the first 3 weeks is 3 meetings a week. And then the next 3 weeks is 2 meetings a week. And then the third 3 weeks are 1 meeting a week. But one of those meetings is for your family and loved ones, anyone that wants to attend.
Brilliant.
Because we understand that addicts are very cunning and tricky, and they can talk people into going and buying their poison for them. And we want to give people permission and have them be able to ask questions. Food addict, really? Well, okay, yeah, really. And I can show them videos, and I can show them, images of the brain on sugar, the brain on cocaine, and a normal healthy brain. And they can literally see that we don't have the connections anymore. And so we really have to do what Ben Johnson calls as a brain bypass. And then we offer the extended community, which is going to be through a place called Circle. And we will have regularly scheduled meetings every single day. And we'll also bring in people like you to talk about GRIN, and in a format where the people can actually have access to people like you and be able to ask direct questions. In fact, I believe that there are questions that I can't ask because I don't know that they're there, that some person with 3 days off of sugar could ask this super profound question. So what we want people to know is when you come into our community, we aren't lording over you. We're at a different place on our journey, but we're all on the journey, and we're just another one. So you are valuable to us as a community and a group, and we want that kind of connection. And we're going to do something that I think is very different. With Circle, you have the ability to connect with other people. You could look and you could see their little profile, and you could see, oh my gosh, she lives 40 minutes away from me. I go there once a month because my aunt lives there. I'm going to see if she wants to meet up for a cup of coffee or some tea or something, or to go for a walk or whatever. So we really want people to connect with each other and maybe even start their own little meetings within our community, or little chat groups or whatever, because we really believe that it's important to find people that you can just be you with, and you can let your light shine, 100%. And that they celebrate your changes and your growth.
Yeah.
And they celebrate that you found out for yourself this and that. And by God, I'm just for today, I'm going to stay away from that, or I'm going to measure that food. And they celebrate you being accountable and discovering and all of that stuff. And one thing I really hope to avoid, and I'm not sure how to do this is the way you have to eat, because what I have to eat and how I have to eat is nobody's business, and it works for me. And I have 5 autoimmune diseases, and I have health reasons for the way I eat. So we modeled this on the Swedish program, but they use a pyramid, and at the bottom is get rid of these 3 things, and that's the oils, the sugars, and the grains. Yes. And then health is the next part of the triangle. And that's where, okay, I'm allergic to this or that, so I'm not going to eat that. Other people might be able to eat it. I have autoimmune disease, and I found that I can't eat this, or nightshades make my joints hurt, so I'm taking nightshades out. So whatever your health issues are, or I need to be lower carbohydrate because I'm a type 2 diabetic and I lost my ability to process carbohydrates. You
Yeah.
know, you have to find your own sweet spot within that health part. And then the very top is preference. And
Yeah.
to me, that means you don't like liver, don't eat it. Just because everybody and their dog is telling you to eat organ meats does not mean you have to. Now,
Absolutely.
I would say try them. And if you don't like them, don't eat them.
Yeah.
But don't be your own expert, is what that pyramid is about.
Yeah. And also with timings as well, like we were talking about in the clubhouse group, is kind of that's so individual depending on your schedule and your age and just your metabolism and everything. There isn't a rule that you can only eat in a 16:8 window or whatever is the latest fad. You have to just experiment a little bit once you've got that foundation. I that's a great model. Start with that, get rid of that stuff, and then you are more sensitive to the messages, I think,
And
about.
as you become more sensitive, you can refer to that pyramid over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And you could notice, like, okay, I ate this, and you said you had symptoms like the next day after going to that Michelin restaurant. Well, some people won't have symptoms for 3 days.
Mm,
What you eat could affect you 3 days later. You could all of a sudden have a little rash, or you could have,
yeah.
a little low level anxiety. And people write this stuff off all the time. And I can tell when I've eaten something that bothers me, because I don't eat things that bother me so regularly that now my system's really sensitive.
Yeah.
But I think some people think, like, again, it's like a to-do list. Oh, I quit eating this, I quit eating that. And they're looking for a result. And really, if you just look at today and don't look for a result, your results are going to be better than you ever imagined. I don't weigh myself, and I'm a size 4, and I'm 55 years old, and I'm small boned. I could probably be a size 2 and I would still look just fine, because I'm very small boned. My ring finger is like a 3.5. But I don't care. I don't have to work hard to be a size 4. And I never thought I would be this small at this age,
Yeah.
you know? And so it just happened naturally. And I actually weigh as much as I weighed last time I weighed myself at the doctor's office. I was the exact same weight as when I was a size 8. But what's happened is my body composition has changed, and that's as a result of eating enough protein.
Yeah.
And you alluded to that earlier, that if you don't eat enough nutrients for your body's going to have what's called nutrient hunger as well.
Yeah.
That's why people are over fat and underfed too, that you can eat like too low of a level of fat, too low of a level of protein, and you have to find your own sweet spot. There's a lot about like protein sparing modified fasts, and Ted Nyman and all of his, stuff. And the research is great, but if you're a food addict, stay away from that,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's too hard. It's too hard
Yeah.
to navigate that, and you can really trigger a lot of hunger by being too low fat.
Too specific. No, I 100% agree. Yeah. Oh my God, we could just go on all evening. We probably shouldn't, because people have
So,
they've people have probably got stuff to do. We'll probably speak again, and if people want to, if they get on Clubhouse, that's it's a very new app, but it's going to be developing, and there are going to be more memberships, more clubs, and everything. So hopefully we'll follow us if you get onto Clubhouse, and you can always join us on a Wednesday at 6 p.m. And it's always a pleasure to listen to you and talk to you. I just feel better. I've absorbed some of your acetylcholine brain. So thank you so much, and we'll
well,
speak.
thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me participate with your book. I think it's just a great idea, a great project to earn money for something very important, and I wish you luck with it.
Thank you so much. I'll speak to you soon. Bye now.